You close the door, your cat watches for a second, turns around and falls asleep. It looks like you have already been forgotten. But 4 hours later, the same cat may greet you very differently. So what happened while you were gone? Did your cat miss you, or simply notice that the routine had changed? That sounds like one question. For science, it is at least three. First, does your cat know that the missing person is specifically you? Second, can it keep a mental representation of you when you are out of sight? And third, does your absence change its behavior before or after you return? Even if all three answers are yes, there is still a boundary. Missing someone is a private experience. A cat cannot describe whether absence feels lonely, frustrating, boring, or merely unusual. We can measure recognition and behavior. We cannot climb directly into the feeling. So the honest answer has to begin with what cats can actually show us. In one experiment, researchers played cats several unfamiliar voices, followed by the voice of their owner, all while the speaker remained out of sight. The cats reacted differently when the familiar voice appeared. Often the change was small, an ear moved, a head turned, or the body became more alert. Most did not rush dramatically toward the sound. That is a useful warning. Cats can recognize something without performing that recognition for us. A tiny movement may carry more information than a theatrical greeting. Smell gives them another route. In a more recent experiment, cats investigated tubes containing the odor of their owner, an unfamiliar person, or no human odor. They spent longer investigating the unfamiliar person's odor. That does not mean strangers smelled better. Novel smells often require more checking. The important part is that the owner's odor was already familiar. Your shoes, your chair, your bed, and yesterday's shirt are not neutral household objects to a cat. They are part of a chemical map of who belongs there. And then there is your voice. Cats can distinguish their own names from other words, and they can distinguish a familiar human voice from an unfamiliar one. They may look unimpressed, but unimpressed is not the same as unaware. Recognition becomes more interesting when the person cannot be seen. Researchers once placed speakers in two different locations around a cat. First, the owner's voice called from one place. Moments later, the same voice came from somewhere else, too quickly for the owner to have moved there. The cats showed their greatest surprise when the owner seemed to teleport. They turned, shifted their ears, or searched toward the impossible new location. When the sounds were not tied to the owner in the same way, that pattern disappeared. This suggests that a cat does not treat your voice as a loose sound floating through the house. It connects the sound to a particular individual, and that individual is expected to occupy a sensible place. In other words, when you are behind a door, your cat can represent an unseen you. That still does not prove longing. But it does remove one easy explanation. You do not simply vanish from your cat's mind whenever you leave the room. Now we reach the part that makes cats look so independent. Most cats spend a great deal of the day resting. If a camera shows your cat sleeping through the afternoon, the footage may be completely accurate. It just cannot tell you what the cat understands about your absence. A small home study followed 14 cats under two conditions. On one day, each cat was left alone for 30 minutes. On another, the separation lasted 4 hours. During the sampled periods alone, the cats did not show a clear behavioral difference between the two durations. They mostly coped. But when the owner returned, the pattern changed. After 4 hours, the cats purred more and stretched more than they did after 30 minutes. The purring difference remained even when researchers removed cats whose feeding routines could complicate the comparison. The researchers did not conclude that every cat had spent 4 hours feeling sad. Their narrower interpretation was that a longer separation changed the cat's motivation to reestablish social contact. That is less romantic than saying, your cat cried for you all day. It is also much more interesting. The important signal may not happen while the door is closed. It may appear during the first few moments after it opens. This is where cat science becomes an argument about definitions. Researchers often borrow a test originally developed for human infants. A cat enters an unfamiliar room with its caregiver. The caregiver leaves, a stranger may appear, and then the caregiver returns. Scientists watch for separation distress, reunion contact, exploration, and whether the caregiver functions as a secure base. One study found that cats clearly distinguished owners from strangers, but did not show the full pattern expected for secure attachment. A later study used a shorter secure base test and reached a different result. Among cats that could be classified, roughly 2/3 were categorized as securely attached to their caregivers. They explored when the caregiver was present, showed a manageable response to separation, and returned to a balance of contact and exploration after reunion. Then the disagreement continued. A 2025 experiment with 15 highly social therapy cats found no sign of the predicted owner attachment pattern. Another 2025 study, following 82 cat and caregiver pairs from homes and shelters, found that environment and relationship history affected separation and reunion behavior. Some cats showed patterns consistent with secure attachment, but the behavior was context-dependent. These studies are not asking whether people and cats can share a meaningful bond. They are asking whether a specific package of behaviors, measured in a strange room, should be called attachment. Change the room, the timing, the cat's history, or the definition, and the answer can change. Attachment is also not a scientific synonym for love. A cat can value a familiar person without using that person exactly as a human infant or a dog would. Independence and social connection are not opposites. To understand how your own cat responds, look for changes relative to that cat's normal behavior when you return. That might be a rising tail, a slow approach, rubbing against your legs, purring, stretching, following you into another room, or simply choosing to settle nearby. None of these signs alone proves that your cat missed you. Purring has several meanings, stretching may follow sleep, and a food routine can shape a greeting. The useful evidence is the pattern. What changes when the separation is longer, and what does your cat seek first when you return? Some cats show more serious separation-related behavior, and owners have reported excessive vocalizing, destructive behavior, inappropriate elimination, agitation, overgrooming, or unusual withdrawal during absences. Those signs are not a personality quiz and can have medical or environmental causes, so persistent changes deserve professional veterinary or behavioral advice. For most cats, however, missing you may not look like panic. It may look like a small social adjustment. Does your cat miss you? Science supports a careful answer. Your cat can recognize you by voice and odor. It can represent you when you are out of sight. The length of a separation can change reunion behavior, and at least some cats appear to use a familiar human as an attachment figure, although scientists still disagree about how broadly that label applies. What science cannot yet measure is the exact private feeling behind those behaviors. So your cat may miss you as a familiar social partner, a source of safety, and part of the expected shape of home. The feeling does not have to be loud to be real. Next time you return, pause before reaching for the food. Watch the ears, the tail, the distance, and the very first choice your cat makes. The answer may be quieter than you expected. If your cat has a reunion ritual, tell us what it does. The smallest habits may be the most revealing.